So yeah, Steven, you mind? I'll just go ahead and go.
Yeah, do it.
Um, yeah, so a lot to cover, or maybe not too much. I don't have a ton to say, honestly. I'll give you guys an update on everything that's been going on. Um, I'll give you an update on this settlement, and then I'll probably open it up for people to get as many people as possible up here to ask questions and answer any concerns they have. So yeah, like I guess we should take things all the way back to when I took over, right? We've had a couple of major inflection points with TFL, the latest one, or with Terra. Obviously, the first one was the DPEG. The second one and the one where I took over operations for TFL was after Joe got arrested. Obviously, when I joined Terra or TFL, I didn't ever expect to be in that position. But yeah, what we tried to do was two kind of objectives to keep the ecosystem moving and hopefully growing, and to try to hold the TFL team together. And I think we were definitely successful at holding the team together. I don't think we lost any kind of critical people from the team. We had big plans for what we wanted to do with Terra and how we were going to be able to contribute. And I think we wanted to build applications that were useful. They kind of represented chain abstraction and were innovative, and I think we accomplished that. I think we fell short in terms of delivering sustained growth to the ecosystem, but I did feel like we had put ourselves in a position to really accelerate if we had won the trial with the SEC. The vast majority of people at TFL who did stick around, despite all of the chaos, we're kind of committed to the idea of like getting us through, continuing to build, continuing to innovate, and doing the best we could for the Terra community, to see if we could win that trial. And it was really important for me, on a professional level and on a personal level, to get to that trial and to get all of the evidence out in the open, because there were so many allegations going around, and it was always frustrating to have Terra thrown in the same box with like an FTX when they were completely different things. This was the failure of an open source protocol. And I was afraid, frankly, like if we let TFL die before the trial, we'd never get the chance to tell that story. And, ultimately we lost. It was a tough trial, right? Because there were a lot of allegations thrown out there, and we didn't have everyone we needed to kind of offset those allegations, but we lost, right? And that was a jury trial, and they decided, I think they ruled that TFL was reckless. So with that, there really is just no way for Terra to continue. The judgment that was going to be entered against us was going to be more than the value of our treasury. And so what we wanted to do was just come to a reasonable settlement with the SEC on the penalty, that would allow for an orderly wind down of TFL, and would give the Terra community time to transition to new kind of ownership of the chain, or new, what's the right word for it? Stewardship of the chain and the ecosystem, and everything related to it. And so that was kind of like a big component of what we've been working on the last few months, since the trial, when I couldn't really speak, was how do we wind this thing down appropriately? And part of that was burning the Luna, making sure that no damage was done on that front, and we were successful there. It was also just giving time for people who were using our applications to either offboard out of them, or for us to find new homes for those applications. So getting us a little breathing room to sell them off. And then also, keeping TFL operating long enough and still operating the chain long enough for the community to step up and find a new team to take over, if there's someone who's willing to do that. And I think there are people willing to do that. So those were kind of the key objectives. Once we lost the trial, it was pretty much game over. So it was just about like, how could we do the most orderly wind down? And I think we accomplished all of that. So within a pretty monumental loss in terms of losing. I wouldn't chalk this up as a win, but I think it's probably the best outcome we could have hoped for, given that we did lose the trial, because there were many other scenarios that could have ended in much less optimal ways, and so we've just been trying to find that solution. I think people have a lot of questions about what's next. I think it'll take us a few months to wind down, to sell off assets. I think for some of the assets that there aren't buyers for, it might make sense to just kind of like transition them over to the community. But the first step will be looking to see, and this is just, legally what we have to do, right, is looking to see if there are buyers for all of the products that we have. Right. And we've gotten a lot of inbound interest for a few of our products, so excited about that. Just to kind of help you guys understand a little bit about like the state that TFL is in right now. If you saw from the settlement, I have to step down off the board, so I'll still be the CEO until this thing is done, but I'm not on the board anymore, and so the board will make decisions about like who we sell to, who we sell different products to, and the prices and all of that will go through board approval. I'll be helping to sell the products, but ultimately it won't be my decision on where they go or what they go for. When you're in bankruptcy like this, essentially the creditors own all of the assets now, right? So, and the creditors have a legal obligation to optimize the value of the estate. And so they're going to look for the best deal for all of these things. And so it's, if there's someone out there who puts a bid in and they feel like they should be the team that gets it just based on loyalty and all of those things, you just have to understand that we're like in a different world right now, and that it's going to be based on value maximization. Oh, the other thing I forgot to mention with the wind down and the settlement is that, and this is not legal advice, and there will be more information that comes out about this that will be more specific, but going back to the plan to relaunch the chain, I think we all thought that the best use of, or the community kind of overwhelmingly voted that the best use of TFL's assets would be to reinvest in launching the chain and continuing to build it and drive value to the new Luna. But the second best option was always for the assets to go back to the token holders. And so with this wind down option, the vast majority, I believe, of both the LFG assets and the TFL assets will go into a fund where people who are creditors or have claims against the estate will be able to submit those claims. And so there will be notices that go out on that. But just something to keep an eye on. So for example, I know there are people on here who want answers about the LFG funds. Just to be clear, I'm not on the board of LFG, so everything that had to do with the LFG settlement was Doe. But my understanding is the way he negotiated it, that all of the funds from LFG would go back to token holders of the original Luna. So that was what he had originally wanted to do with LFG funds anyway. And a different version of that, but a very similar version of that, I think will be happening through the bankruptcy process. So it'll just be a little more corporate and bureaucratic, but that's the idea. TFL doesn't have a ton of creditors, right? And so we didn't have big loans or anything like that. And so a lot of the assets that are left over, I think will be available for people who want to file claims against those assets. And I think what that means, it primarily would be token holders from the original Luna Terra ecosystem. So I think that's kind of the update. Let me think if there's anything else I wanted to get off. Let me just check my notes real quick. Yeah, that's it. I think that's it. So, TFL will continue to operate to try to do, like I said, this kind of graceful wind down over the next few months. I think when it comes to, who's going to take over ownership and stewardship of the chain, I think that really needs to be a community decision. I would love to see a lot of discussion on that in the forums. But, I'm not going to participate in that. I think, my run with Terra was really about trying to hold TFL together and get us through the trial and win the trial. Obviously, I was successful at one of those and failed at the other. And so it's time for new leadership for the chain. There are